Welcome, everybody, to League Night, June 7th edition. We're excited to have a show tonight. I'm joined out of studio, but here on the show, Jamie Thomas. How's it going, man?
Oh, I got the fresh cut for the fresh storylines we're going to talk about. Let's get it.
Fresh cut. I don't understand that very well, but Josh, you're here. How's it going? You were off last week?
Yes. Actually, no, I was like, yes. Are you telling me I was off? I was actually here last week. I'm pretty sure.
Maybe you're saying I had
an off week.
The band is back together is how I should say. It's been a while since it's been the three of us. So we're here. We're going to talk disc golf, specifically a lot that came out of the Portland Open. Jamie, you were there on the ground. I know it's different being there in person. Josh and I viewed from our comfort of our homes. What was the feeling like there? Did you get wet? Did you have an umbrella? What was the gallery like?
We got soaked at points, but that didn't stop the gallery from coming out. Let me just give the shout out, the accolade of the year so far. Portland, you're the best so far this year. Biggest crowd we've seen. The energy was incredible. Bucket list venue to go see Glendoveer. Pros love the course. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, from my perspective, the change at Glendoveer on the other portion, they called it the west side, I believe, was spectacular. On camera coverage, it played so much different than a golf course. In my opinion, Josh, what do you think?
Oh, I mean, and I'm going to take the stereotypical, like, kind of Portland landscape, but how bright green was it? I mean, I know that's such like a like real factor, but let me just say, when you talk about the aesthetics of disc golf on the TV, I had it up on the big screen. Someone walks in and they're like, wow, what is this? I mean, so like course aesthetics make a difference. Portland brought it. The gallery, the people, exciting to see. And I think a combination of the two courses. I don't think we're talking much about it, but it's interesting to see another 4-round tournament. I wonder if that's a hints of things in the future. But yeah, Portland was great.
Yeah, does 4 rounds lend any portion of the storyline here to the winners that came out of it? Let's go ahead and talk about it. Valerie Mandujano goes wire to wire with such an impressive victory. Jamie, tell us about it. What's the storyline here?
Yeah, it's super impressive, especially given that it was 4 rounds. If memory serves, I didn't write this down, but I think we have to go back to 2019 to find an FPO player who went wire to wire in a 4-round event. You could probably guess who that player is if I'm talking 2019. Paige Pierce, I believe Ledgestone. So it's been a minute, but just Valerie Mandujano was on a different level this weekend. She walked into the final round at Glendoveer with an 8-stroke lead. And I was talking to Mason Ford a bit, and he told me that she woke up that morning saying, I want to win by double digits. That was the goal. So she tied the hot round on the final day. And if you already have an 8-stroke lead and you tied a hot round with Owen Scoggins, who came in second, you're probably going to be doing pretty well. And how about the bounce back from Katrina Allen? Her 3rd round was abysmal, and she turned around and found the podium. So a lot of exciting stuff happening in FPO. I'm curious to know what you guys saw from the comfort of your couches.
Yeah, we saw a little bit of rain every day, and as Josh said, the green on the trees, but some incredible competition. With Valerie leading, it had this feeling of like who's going to get second, and I just had to believe with the fire that Valerie brings that she was going to be able to maintain that lead. She's not one to make big mistakes. She's fairly consistent, and we can see that in the scores, how they played out. I thought Katrina wasn't going to have that abysmal round, as you mentioned. I thought she was going to come out this event and specifically just slay all 4. She was my pick going into this. She wasn't able to do it, but she did have a strong finish there. My surprise that it is what it is. Not seeing Paige Pierce, not really hearing much about her, but that's how it goes sometimes in this golf world, especially nowadays. Specifically talking FPO, what an exciting thing. Valerie coming out of Waco. I was so stoked. I believe that she was the next big thing. And here she is saying, I can still do it on courses outside of the woods. I know there are big trees, but what a different course. And she even surprised, I don't say surprised. She was proud of herself coming out of this event. Josh, what'd you think?
Yeah. She talked about this not really being probably her favorite or strength as far as course style goes. And after underperforming at OTB, really came out with a focus to say, even this isn't my preference, right? I'm going to see what I can do and lay it down. And she played well in all the rounds, but she had at least 2 like great birdie streaks. And anytime you're stringing that stuff together, momentum is a thing, especially when it comes to the mental game. So yeah, great job. But I want to talk a little bit about, right, the length of this course and OTB if you went around and listened to people in media and elsewhere making picks, there's a lot of discussion on the long throwers, right? And so we could go down the list, but you're talking Paige Pierce, Katrina, Ella Hansen, who had a great Portland Open last year, even Jennifer Allen. I mean, it's interesting that Valerie, who can certainly throw far, but is not considered to be one of the longest distance throwers. And then in second place, we have Owen Scoggins, who is not a distance thrower. And if you actually look at their performance, both Val and Owen had very, very similar games statistically, except for Val slightly outthrows Owen. They both putted extremely well. They stayed in the fairway. They limited OB. Listen, Paige Pierce, really bad putting and high OB, 14 strokes compared to 7 strokes. You're giving up 7 strokes just by going out of bounds, right? Which, by the way, I think is also a hint to course design. This course was not only about length, right? Because if it was only about length, then those throwers are going to make a difference. It's about precision, length, ability to putt. And just quickly here, Katrina, decent driving, average putting, again, high out of bounds. Ella Hansen, high out of bounds. Somebody like Jennifer Allen, just plain old bad putting this weekend. We talked about this last week with Hannah Macbeth as a guest about being a balanced game. And through few names came out, and then I commented and said, or you can just do it like Owen Scoggins and just be solid everywhere. I wonder if that'll be a new game plan for some of these players, right? Just kind of throttle it down and be consistent, be balanced, and you might beat some of the other big names.
It's going to be hard to keep up with Valerie, but let's take a look at some stats courtesy of Stat Mando as we get ready to transition into some talk specifically about Simon. Jamie, what do you see here?
Well, shout out to Stat Mando, always bringing the deep dive on, just connecting the dots on what the stats are. Something that really stands out, talking about Valerie Mandujano, 4th player in FPO that's won twice in a single season. And hey guys, do you notice anything about those other 4 names that she now joins their company? They all have majors.
All majors.
All major winners. 3 of the 4 world champions. Kristen Stars comes courtesy of the 2019 U.S. Women's Disc Golf title. So this is a pretty good group to be considered in, and might portend good things for Mandujano's future here.
For sure. So Josh, do you react to any of this before we move on?
Yeah, I mean, it's great. I think there was a lot of discussion earlier in the year. You acknowledged it that, and again, hearing across other media outlets that has Valerie arrived. And I think early in the year with a Waco win, a little early to maybe say. I mean, there was a lot of optimism, but now putting her name in that tier, I think that's an interesting discussion. I bet we discuss that a little bit more later in the show.
For sure. And I want to say before we move on from this, Isaac Robinson, that guy can put down hot rounds almost on the regular, but to see him break a lot of people's bets, I'm sure, saying he's there on the top, but he's going to average, 1,020 or 1,030, and he won't be there at the top at the end of the tournament. Surprised some people. I think getting the attaboy shout out from Paul Macbeth in a social media post following the tournament must feel pretty good. Paul Macbeth, by the way, not making a lot of big storylines because it feels lackluster in a way, but I think there's still something notable to say. He was on a lead card come the final day of a 4-round event. All right, let's move into more discussion here surrounding Simon Lizotte's win here, his second win. I think it's time to talk about it. He prevails.
Hold on, let's roll that graphic back, Matt. We got some more stuff to talk about.
Okay,
I can't let you go on. We got to talk about Simon being the 4th MPO player to go back-to-back on the Pro Tour. Now check this stat out underneath it. Macbeth, Wysocki, and McMahon, they each repeated that same feat the following season. Chew on that for a moment. 2 wins back-to-back one season means 2 wins back-to-back the next season. For a guy that was sitting on the couch nursing an injury 2 months ago and holding his baby boy in his arms, I mean, look at what the future is suddenly bright, kind of like we're talking about for Valerie. All of a sudden, this is a track that we were not expecting when we started the year for either of these players, right?
I actually very much agree with that. And I think we expected him to perform better than last year's average. But to see him come out with a win, you thought to yourself, well, good for him. He's able to show that he can do it again. But to have a back-to-back, it must cause you to stop and say, is he back in that elite conversation where he's in the top 5. I know notably Ricky Wysocki wasn't there. Eagle McMahon is out injured. Chris Dickerson wasn't there. And people want to make that a conversation. And I think rightfully so. But the way that he won against a still very strong field says that he probably was going to be there at the battle at the top regardless. Josh, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I had a similar list. So first of all, I know we're going to talk a little bit more specifically around Simon because the question, right, is he back? And I don't even know if that's the right question because he's always been good, but this is the first time he's ever won back-to-back pro tours, right? So like, is it a new Simon may actually be a better question. And I think it is a conversation point. The question is, how much stake do you want to make in it? You already listed the names, Wysocki, Dickerson, Eagle, but even Paul clearly not playing to his elite level. He did face off with Calvin Heimberg at OTB, but this event, Heimberg was further down the leaderboard. And so you wonder, right, if at some major or some other elite event, if they're all competing, will Simon be there? And to be clear, I'm not saying he wouldn't be, but I'm saying that would be an interesting question if they all showed up and they were all on their A game. I'll hint at my opinion, which is I think there is a new Simon, and I think it probably would be pretty competitive against all of them in all circumstances. But I think, it'll be interesting. And by the way, just general commentary, we don't talk a lot about likability of players, but how about just seeing Simon Lizotte and Garrett Gerthy, both well-respected, fun players, great sportsmanship, elite talent, really duking it out in that last round and seeing Garrett kind of chase Simon down. Seeing Simon's emotional antics, and I mean that in the best sense on the course. That's one of the reasons people like him. I have heard comments from people, and they meant this in a positive light, but they're like, Simon just looks like an 11-year-old out there on the discourse having fun, right? Falling down on the tee pad, on his knees, grabbing his face, bumping his head on the tree, but then throwing the most incredible relaxed throw that's, like 480 feet, flip up, around a tree. So just a lot of fun. We always talk about winning, but there is something about the enjoyment of watching the sport when you see people competing at a high level and kind of wearing it all on their sleeve. It was a lot of fun. Not to speak how hole 18 went down. I don't think we're breaking that down much here in today's show. But wow, like both exciting, maybe confusing, allows a lot of debate. At the end of it all, the person you probably thought would win starting hole 18 did win when hole 18 finished. But like from tee to final putt, I don't think anybody actually expected that to happen. So
let's break it down.
That's why we watch live disc golf.
Jamie was there. Jamie, tell us about it. The last hole, I think I got a text message somewhere in the range of, this is going to really test Simon here. The rain's coming down and what's happening. And how did it play out for you there? I mean, instant classic, right?
Oh, instant classic. Yeah, I sent you that text back on like 14.
Okay.
The big righty Annie turnover, and the rain is just pouring, and all of a sudden people were just yanking it out of bounds. It was nuts. But when it got to 18, it was kind of like watching a tennis match. It was like a major final match, French Open style or something like that, where you've got off the tee, you're like, okay, Simon's in a slightly better position because he's got the easier around the corner left to right, given the Mando. But then he just throws it out of bounds right. And then you go, okay, well, Double G's got a little less, and he's got that bailout zone to the left up there, pin high. And then Double G doesn't get enough turn on it. So it was just back and forth between the tee shot and the second shot. And then I think, once Double G threw out of bounds, Simon was OB so far up the fairway that it was just up and in. And, Double G not getting close enough for that putt kind of really, you saw what was going to happen from there. But I think generally, if you zoom out, it's easy to say, oh, the two most powerful players in the tournament were the ones that were battling at the end. But that really does a disservice to how well they were putting the disc in the basket, both of those guys.
Oh yeah, up until that point, it was amazing. Hey, and I know we're about to segue and talk more about the actual winners because they deserve it. But something else looked really strange to me in that final MPO round. So again, congrats to Simon, Garrett, everybody else competing. But like, are either of you concerned about Paul Macbeth's putting? I mean, ranked way down the leaderboard. I know there's lots of discussions on his putting style at the moment, even on his own right. But let me just tell you, if you've watched disc golf for long enough, you're used to seeing a lot of those putts, just kind of lining them up, his regular routine and canning them. And the amount that hit cage or were just slightly off, really kind of took me back. Not necessarily saying he should have chased anybody down. I'm not even sure if he hits those putts he does. It was Simon's to win, but awfully strange watching it. Just didn't feel right.
We saw some moments of McBeast, if you will, where we hit some really big outside of circle two putts. But you're right, the amount that hit the cage was surprising, concerning, I'm sure, to himself, but I'm not sure it's rattling to where he's going to need to have, counseling over this. I think we're gonna see him progress. And I just don't think we saw the absolute confidence. So there might be a little mentality there that needs to shift for him.
You
All
know what I
right.
saw?
Yeah, what
I
do you think,
saw
Jamie?
he has a different putt, and I've had the
I think
privilege
he's
of
reworking
watching.
it.
Yeah, I've been watching Paul Macbeth putt from inside the ropes, like, I don't know, gosh, 8-10 years now. And he's got a little bit of a different routine. He's got a little more kind of arm swing, like practice pumps before he throws. And he didn't used to have that. He kind of just used to hold the disc up here and kind of wiggle the toe. Saw so
Mhm.
many kids practice, the
That's
Macbeth
how
toe
I do it
wiggle.
now. I putt because that's how I putt.
Exactly, right? So watch him now versus throw on, some coverage from a few years ago. You'll see a slightly different pre-putt routine. But at the same time, I think it was like 12 on the uphill hole where he's like well short down the hill, the one where most of the guys were throwing rollers. And I just looked over at the gallery as I was doing crowd control and I was like, he could make this. Lo and behold, he slams it in. So he was on don't forget, he took that 8 late in the round, but I think he was on like 6 in a row before that. So he was making the charge for a minute there.
Yeah, I think it would have came up a little short, but the fact that he was going to have a solid third without that, yeah, 8, that snowman, it would be something that he could have definitely done. Let's move it straight into Simon Lizotte's post-round win interview. Let's hear what he had to say.
Simon, you're won back-to-back tournaments, man. What's going on?
I have no idea. I'm out of breath. I was so nervous the whole round. Garrett played amazing, made every freaking putt you could make. That was crazy. And I don't know with my game right now, it's all just working. The bad shots are getting lucky and the good shots are getting good results. Putter's feeling good. Yeah, I mean, Garrett is one of the nicest guys on tour. I get along with him great. We're like fellow distance throwers, so we've been together in Vegas in the desert throwing for distance, and he's such a good sportsman, so he's one of my favorite guys to compete against. I think our last battle head-to-head was Masters Cup a couple of years ago where he ended up winning, so I thought this is my revenge time. Maybe I can get one back. But I felt like he outplayed me, but I got away with it. After OTB win, I texted my boss, because he was obviously super happy and proud. I texted him, now I have to back it up, because I knew a win is great, but it's like we always say in putting and the vlogs and stuff, twice or it's luck. So now I did it twice, not luck.
I think that Simon almost didn't believe in himself until he got this second win. That's what it sounds like to me coming out of that interview. What do you think?
Well,
Thank you,
I mean,
Josh.
I understand what you're saying, but I think he did believe in himself and he felt like he needed to prove it to everybody else, right? So that's what in my mind, it's a matter of, I know I could do it because nobody more than him knows how he approached OTB. I mentioned earlier in this show, how is Simon back or is this actually a new Simon? There's been some kind of joking, but I wonder if seriousness about kind of reflecting and a little bit of this kind of extended off season for him. He played with Paul Macbeth, and I'm not saying credit to Paul, but I think that experience where they went back and forth probably opened his eyes a little bit to something he already knew. He just needed to uncover it again, which is, Simon, you're so talented. You don't have to do the extra stuff and just execute. And so I think he did that. And I mean, think about the storyline here in MPO. I don't know, go back like a month or two, and nobody's counting Simon in the storyline other than he's a likable guy and he has a great YouTube channel. And listen to this. He skips the first event of the year. Then he comes in 60th at Waco, 60th at Waco, 35th at Champions Cup, skips some more events, and then he goes 6th, 2nd, 1st, and 1st. Do you think the MPO storyline is shaken up? I would say so. I think people would like to see Simon running around and giving a lot more high fives this year. And if he does anything like this the remainder of the year, I think the whole thing flips on its head. Really probably, and I don't know if it's entirely unexpected, but I might classify it as unpredictable, meaning who would have actually predicted that, this is where it would be at. It's pretty exciting.
I hate to say it, but I think that this is the perfect time for him to emerge as the back-to-back champion with those notable players missing, because if he can capitalize on this and continue to build off of it, this is a major storyline. Jamie, what do you think coming out of this? What does this mean for Simon the rest of the year?
Well, think about this, Matt, to your point. What's coming up next? The
Preserve. He performs really well there from what we've seen in the past. Yeah.
That'd be
Bingo.
amazing. Can you
Not long
imagine?
after that, we talked about it earlier this year, going back to Emporia for Worlds, and he has that glass blown open victory under his belt from a
we
few
go,
years ago.
Simon
He
to the
played
moon.
well. Yeah, he played well even in horrible conditions this
I
year.
mean, is he not? If you're doing at least a top 5, I won't make you pick a winner for Worlds, but if you're gonna like predict a top 5 right now, is Simon not on that list after this?
Oh, he's definitely on the list. Here's how I envision it. Have you ever been like, you go to get seated at a restaurant, okay? You ready? Go with me here. And they give you booth seating, okay? And it's easy. 2 people fit on each side. You're like, they're seating for 4. So you've got like Ricky, Paul, Calvin, Chris Dickerson. And Simon's like, hey guys, I'm here. Right? He's like, scoot on over, give me room. I think it changes the situation. And guess what? Of course, I'm playing along with this, having fun, but it's awkward for everybody else at the table because it's like, we didn't save you space, Simon. And Simon's like, yeah, but I'm here anyway. I think it definitely shakes the whole, it changes everything. And I'm looking forward to see. Now, does that mean I expect him to win everything from here on out? Probably not. But I can't even see, unless he gets some type of injury or something else, like why. Like, there's nothing about Simon now where you'd be like, these are exceptions and he's going to go back to 10th or 20th place. Like, there was nothing he did out there that was so incredibly amazing other than just play incredibly well, which is something Simon can continue to do. So, yeah, I don't know. Pick him for Worlds, pick him for some events. I think you are not unreasonable if you are to do so.
In his interview, something that stood out to me was the fact that he said he was so nervous the final round. And I believe I saw in a social media post since then saying that putting himself in this position again, back to back, and if he can continue to do it, those nerves will start to subside. I don't see Simon as being a nervous person. So that was really profound to me to hear him say that he was so nervous. Jamie, any closing thoughts on the storylines for Simon?
I just got to go. I mean, that's a great point you made, Matt. I got to go back to something Josh said here that about the injuries. If you think about Eagle, who's still nursing the injury, Ricky obviously taking time off as well with the Lyme flare up. We know Paul, he's going to be a warrior and fight through it, but he's been not 100% this year. Simon is just starting to come back into form off of the injuries when those other guys are going to have a lot less time to kind of shake that rust off as we get closer to the World Championships. So it definitely thickens the plot, let's say, for MPO this season.
Do you know anybody, and this is rhetorical, who is voting for Simon to not win? I think that, I don't know if that's the right way to pose that question, but who doesn't want Simon to win? I mean, that's really where I'm at, and I can't believe that I would find anybody that says, I don't want Simon to win. So the world is rooting for Simon at this point. No pressure, buddy. Let's go ahead and look at the interview with Valerie Mandujano after her win here at the Portland Open.
I'm pretty proud of myself just because I felt like the style of the course wasn't really my style, and I proved to myself even bigger courses than I'm used to, I can still take on the challenge and still succeed in it. You know, it was a race in my head to see how well I could shoot on this course. That's why I think I was so nervous. It wasn't the crowd, it wasn't, what was on the line, it was more what could I shoot in this course.
Was there any kind of thought given to the fact that you protected such a large lead coming into today's round? Any thoughts of playing safe? Any decisions you made differently than perhaps you did yesterday?
There was some thoughts of it where it was like, oh, maybe I should lay up on this putter. Maybe I shouldn't try that drive. But then I was like, why? That 10 down popped up in my head. I'm like, I'm not going to achieve it if I lay up.
Your confidence is obvious based on some of the decisions you're making on the course, some of the choices in terms of line or disc to throw. What is it about your game that's working so well that's giving you that confidence?
I think it's a little bit of everything. I keep saying it, and I think it's just putting the practice into it. And I'm not able to throw forehand, so I think having to practice at any shot constantly gives me a little more confidence knowing that I have it in my bag.
I find it very interesting that she says a few things. One being that last line, I don't have a forehand. I'd love to follow up more on that. Secondly, I think that Valerie does something very well, and I've seen this coming out of Waco. She is not there to compete against the field. She's competing for her goals. She's competing to set her target in place and what she wants to achieve, and that's what she's trying to accomplish. It served her well here. Jamie, react to this. What's the bigger picture for Valerie coming out of now her second win in 2022?
Yeah, she's flipping the script on this whole division right now. I mean, she's the dedication, the determination when you just watch this presser and you can just see like she's so locked in to what she's doing right now. And I mentioned I was talking to Mason Ford and he told me he's like someday I'm the driver of the RV. So when Valerie or Alexis wants to go to do some field practice, do some putting, like it doesn't matter if I don't want to do it. I'm going to do it. And he said that drive is making all of them better and having them kind of take their game to that next level. So this is a great spot to be in for any professional athlete when you can put the blinders on and just ignore everything else around you, even if you don't have every shot in the bag. It's good enough to dominate the field on a course that's not your style. Scary times for the field.
Mason says,
Yeah.
I'm going to practice and I'm going to like it. And that's how he's going to get better along with her. Josh, reactions. What's the storyline here that you see for Valerie?
Well, yeah. So, Jamie, I think I know what you're saying, but you're saying she's flipping the script on this entire field. I think I disagree a little bit in the sense of I think she had already done that, and maybe that's kind of your point. But like she came out and won right at Waco after not playing in the first event. And then I think we feel like there was a lull for Valerie, but if you actually look in order, right, it's 4th, 6th, 7th, 7th, which really like is not an entire fall off. That's still fairly consistent. She did have 12th at OTB and talked about her disappointment and then came out firing. So my real point is, I think there was already discussion. I remember it early on in the year. Is Valerie now in the mix? In fact, we didn't know how Kristen Tatar would play right early on in the year. And so there was questions of like Paige, Katrina, is it Kristen? Is it Valerie? She was in the discussion. Maybe we let her fade in our mind, but do you think she faded in her own mind? I don't think so. And I bet you the field was also pretty aware of where she was. And now coming out and knocking out the second one of this year, I think really she's right in the discussion. Kristen Tatar, Paige Pierce, Katrina Allen. I do put Valerie 4th out of those 4, but she is clearly on the same tier, at least in my opinion. And the truth is, had you gone and asked me that after OTB, I would not have said so. So I'm kind of going to out myself and say, I don't know if I've been as confident, but now hindsight, when I look at the season and the average and where she's at, like she's been there all along and she's just came out to Portland and reminded us, right, that, hey, I never actually went anywhere. I'm still here.
Yeah, I was so impressed after Waco to see her do this. When she came into the final round or even the third round with the lead that she had, I didn't even really have a doubt at all that she was going to be able to take it down. And maybe that's not a hot take with a lead that she had, but any closing thoughts, Jamie, before we move on?
Yeah, I think the part for me when I say flip the script, and your point is well made, is that Waco is almost a type of course where you would expect her to play very well.
Yes,
you know,
for
you have to
sure.
clutch up on the beast. It's tight gaps. It's a little more reachable for a greater percentage of the field. But this, you had gaps to hit, but you also really had to deal with big uphills and downhills. And I got to play this course, and let me tell you, I wish I had played from the FPOTs because it would have been more fun. It was a very fun course, but it was just like you had to stretch everything out to get looks. And the way she was kind of, slicing and dicing through this course was so incredibly impressive that's why it flipped the script for me. She won on a quirky course like Waco, and then she won on the second longest track of the year. So points well made. She's been there the whole time, but she really reminded us this weekend.
And as we close this out, you mentioned flip, but I just have to say one thing about Valerie. She has this unbelievable ability to trust. She knows her disc, some of the most beautiful flip ups. Reminds me of hole 17 at Waco. I think it was hole 8 at Portland. The clip played in the background here, but where she just throws this straight line and it's a late flip on the disc and it's just perfect. And it almost, crashes in the basket. It hits the band and bounces off. But there's just something about the way she is throwing the disc right now, podium or not. It's just fun and awesome to see. And again, we always speculate who's winning, who's playing best because it's a sport and that's what it's about. But there is an aesthetically pleasing thing to watching players play well. It's just exciting.
Absolutely. So we've got a new segment tonight we're going to roll into called Favorite or Dark Horse. And we're going to decide, are the players that we put up on screen a dark horse to you where you say, hey, it's really lower percentage that they would win than we expect, meaning like they are going to place here or they're going to win? Is it a dark horse or is it a favorite? We're going to make the standard here be, do they get on the podium? So we're going to put a player up. Josh, Jamie, and myself will react. Will this player make the podium? Do you expect it? Or are they going to always be just that outlier who you don't think is going to do it? So let's go ahead and put up the first name here. Own Scoggins leads the FPO in Circle 1X with 83% and Circle 2 with 26%. We've brought her up a few times tonight. Josh, I think I know where you're going to stand with this. Is she a dark horse or a favorite for you? Is she going to make the podium, or do you think she's just going to be shy?
Oh, I was hoping Jamie would go first because I'm just going to disagree with whatever he says. But actually, this is a harder debate for me because we're kind of putting the classification of podium because I expect Owen to play well. The question is how well. Look, Owen Scoggins, if you look at UDisc as a reference point, 6th in the world, and she's 8th in tour point standings right now, just got 2nd at Portland. I think it's a stretch for me, but I'm going to actually say favorite because she continues to seem to play better. And if she just did that well at Portland, like some of the other events coming up, I'm going to say favorite, which surprises me how I might have started the year, but that's what I've seen on the course.
Absolutely. I say favorite as well because in my mind, I'm not surprised if she shows up on the podium. I don't think it's going to happen all the time, but I'm not surprised, and that's kind of my criteria. What do you think, Jamie?
Oh man, now I wonder what Josh was gonna. If I had said favorite, would you have said dark horse?
We'll see.
We'll see. He still has the opportunity.
We've got a few more names to come. I'm not going to let you know my.
Oh, Owen. Okay, I'm going to be boring and agree with you guys. Owen is just one of the favorites to do anything. Do a press conference, be a meme in the middle of a tournament. I mean, did you see her take a bow this weekend? She had a great, like, she had a great shot.
Canning putts in her warm up to nobody's surprise. Yeah, just.
Oh my goodness! Like it's just awesome. The game is better. If you watch the end of the broadcast when Valerie wins, you just see Owen jumping up and down and running up and giving her a huge hug. Like you just the energy. And that's so important to tie this back to the play on the course. She's aggressive, but she's always having fun. It's a positivity mixed with aggression and a deadly putter in her hands. I think she's going to be a favorite, especially because getting off the West Coast, we're not going to see quite as many extremely long courses. So if she gets that much more of an edge, call her a podium favorite.
Absolutely. All right, moving over to Joel Freeman. Playing absolutely good disc golf, in some cases, great disc golf. We saw a pretty good performance out of him here. He has 5 DGPT top 10 finishes to back up my point here. And what do you think? Jamie, I'm putting you up first. I want to see if Josh disagrees.
All right, let's see. Joel Freeman, and I'm going to say dark horse because it's not a thing that it's a negative by any means, but when Joel Freeman is playing well and when he can streak them together, put consecutive holes, consecutive rounds together, that's certainly within his capability. And he has just been on more and more lead and chase cards the more we see him. Even if the finish isn't exactly, right around that 2-3 mark, he's giving himself the chance, and dark horses, all they need is a chance. So Joel Freeman, he's a good dark horse pick if you're doing some fantasy disc golf this year.
All right. I'm expecting Josh to disagree. Is that the case?
Yeah, I already said I have to disagree with everything Jamie
Do
said.
it.
No, I'm kind of playing along with it. But in this case, yeah, I mean, look, I am actually taking the point of if I look forward from here, what do I expect? So if we look backwards, Joel Freeman seems to always have this potential, and then it feels like there's like one thing that gets in the way in a particular round, a particular hole, a particular mentality I think we've seen for Joel, right? He kind of gets a little down in a rut, but then comes back out of it. Look, he's ranked 11th in the world in UDisc, but 6th in point standings, and we see the stat there, 5 top 10 finishes. So our question is, can he make the podium? Here's my take. The more Joel plays, the more he's going to figure out that one thing that is hampering him, and he's going to come out of that. It's not really a stretch to say somebody who consistently finishes in the top 10. We're not talking 20. We're not talking he's had one high result. He's consistent. What that means is he's just a smidge away. And so in that case, I'm going to say I expect to see Joel Freeman make the podium, especially with some of the events coming up. And so I'm going to classify him as a favorite.
I am going to be the tiebreaker here. It doesn't mean I'm right, but I'm going dark horse. I'm joining Jamie here. And my thought process is not that he can't do it, but is he the guy that I'm going to pick on any given week to make the podium? The answer is no. I would be surprised if he made the podium. And maybe that's putting it a little too bluntly and too strong because he can, and we know he has the skill to do it. But I say dark horse because I would be surprised to see him over the great field that is there right now.
All right,
Will I change my mind on
mark
that?
it down.
I'll probably change my mind at some point, but right now that's where I'm standing. All right, let's go into our next talk here on Maria Oliva. This is her season, 7th in park, 5th in bounce back. We're seeing highlight reels come out during DGN Live. Josh, you're starting us off.
Yeah, so with Maria, I remember, I don't know which show, but earlier this year, even talking about Maria being a standout. She's been on the tour before, kind of pops up. I think a very good player, plenty of distance. You can see here the parked, stat. So lots of good things to say about Maria. It's also worth mentioning 11th in Pro Tour point standings, just came in 8th at Portland. But this is speculation, clearly, right? But given what I'm seeing and what I'm seeing in the FPO field, for me, this would have to be a dark horse, not a favorite. I would be surprised if Maria came out and hit the podium. If you can differentiate between shocked and surprised, and I'm not sure you can, like I wouldn't be shocked, meaning like she can do it, but you're asking me and I'm saying dark horse.
Dark horse. Jamie, I'm going to make it simple and I'm going to give you the platform here. I say dark horse as well. Great up and coming, shows potential, but right now, totally a dark horse. What do you think, Jamie?
Yeah, I'm going to go 3 for 3 on this. And in any other year, I might be more inclined based on the upward trend that we're seeing in, opposite of sort of the past as she has upped the level of her game over the past few years. But it's just really crowded in that top 5 this year for FPO. I mean, we've already talked about Owen Scoggins. You got to talk about Missy Gannon, who's, probably still not getting the love that she fully deserves for the consistency she's been playing with. Ella Hansen making big strides. You've got to kind of think about Maria Oliva in that sort of like Holland Handley type scenario where like they could jump up and surprise you, but therein lies the word. So definitely within capability, especially if she keeps putting on some highlight throws like we've seen. But yeah, good, strong dark horse pick there. If you're, again, I keep going back to fantasy disc golf and I don't even play fantasy disc golf. So maybe I need to start logging in.
We can have the Jamie's picks. All right. So moving over to a player who is now sitting in 28th in disc golf pro tour standings, 28th, found himself on the lead card, beating out the likes of 5-time world champ Paul Macbeth, making a significant point and stand that he's there for the 4 rounds, all 4 rounds. He was 5th at Waco, 3rd at this event here. And what do you think? Do you think he's a dark horse or do you think he's expected? You think he's going to make that podium? Jamie, take it away.
Well, I put this one in there for a specific reason. You notice those 2 stats on that lower third? Those are the only 2 Pro Tour events he's played so far this year. So I wanted to go with somebody that didn't have a ton of data out there for this season. Let me add a little more into this pool here. If you're on the East Coast, you already know the Robinson brothers. You know them. They're like perennial favorites to qualify on Monday for the USDGC. Like you could pretty much just count those 2 spots gone because those guys, and they're kids at this point, like teenagers. They're coming in and out qualifying some very savvy and experienced golfers. So I'm going to get a little spicy. I'm going to give Josh a chance to actually disagree with me on the show here. I'm going to say favorite. Why not? Go out on a limb. If we can take a limited data set and extrapolate to the moon, this guy's going up in the right direction. If Simon Lizotte can come off the couch, throw 80% and win back-to-back, why can't Isaac Robinson, with the type of putts I saw him make this weekend, why can't he be a podium favorite? We're headed east. Let's do it.
All right, Josh. He set you up.
Yeah, well, it is an interesting, an interesting guess, right? Because there's not enough data. He did play 2 Pro Tour events on the elite level. It is worth noting that at MCO, a Silver Series, he was 45th place, Jamie, and then 19th at the Champions Cup, which is not bad at a major, top 20. Isaac is a player who seems to kind of mop it up at the regional, like C, B, and maybe even A tier. He's clearly good, showing up at Waco and Portland Open. So I can actually see the case for saying favorite, but to me, this is the perfect definition of a dark horse, meaning it's somebody that doesn't have any history to really expect it, but has shown enough flashes to say, you never know, this is the person who could jump up. And, what did we see this year at the Kentucky Derby? The bottom player showing up, right? So put a bet out there. This is the kind of player who, it may not be a bad wager, right? Because you just don't know what to expect, and the returns could be quite high. We wish the best, but for me, dark horse, here's the real truth for me. I am not expecting to see Isaac to continue to perform at this level until she shows a little more history. But great event this weekend.
Never tell him the odds.
Yeah, that's exactly where I fall, Josh. The sentiment of what you just said there at the last line is that we need to see more. I think every time he does something like this, we start to say, okay, he's not as dark horse as maybe we're talking about. But I agree with Josh. I say dark horse. He does have a history of performing well, at least in one of the rounds or even the first round. I think if we're more specific, I think I saw that with Statmando. One of the first rounds that he puts down is a very high, and then he has a hard time keeping up that average. His rating currently, I know that's a touchy subject, 1,035. That's his rating for a reason. He can play off hot rounds, but he's also playing some lower rounds. I'd be surprised to see. I'm not picking him as a favorite. Not me. I'm going.
I
dark
know we're
horse.
not going to spin down to a ratings conversation, but what's Simon Lazat's rating right now? They're not all that far off of each other, and I realize there's a different story behind both of those ratings.
Yeah, exactly.
I get it. I'm just saying, right? It is an interesting point because this was a 4-round tournament. So congrats to Isaac. I mean, he
stayed on the lead card every single round.
That's kind of the point. So I don't know. I'm optimistic. So Jamie, I can actually see the case for a favorite, but for me, that's too much of a stretch. Yeah, too much.
Come on over to the favorite side, Josh.
No.
We're spicy over here.
We are. You can say famous or infamous. I say infamous for overreacting to the news stories. To be honest, there are probably news stories we talked about here in the first and second show of the season that we've totally forgot and haven't followed up on. I'm giving Isaac fuel to light his fire. It's nothing against him, but here's my thought. I bet we don't remember to talk about Isaac Robinson for much of the rest of the season. That's not a knock on him as an individual. I actually hope he proves me wrong.
Mark it down. If you take only his last 3 rounds, he actually averaged a little below his rating. His first round, this is what I talked about, his first round, it's where he comes out so hot, 1,076. That's super high. So that's what really kept him in the conversation. Solid play on the way out. Josh, that was a hot take.
Yeah, I feel bad.
One of those
saying
clips
it,
is getting played back later this year.
I understand it. And actually, I'll be happy to be wrong in that case. What I'm actually banking on here is the fact that we love to overreact to what happened yesterday in our sport. And
exactly. All right. Comments below. Comment and let us know what storyline we missed. Who are the players that you think could be that teetering line between dark horse and favorite? Or let us know what you thought about our takes on this. We'd love to know and respond to you there. Jamie, there's something big going on this weekend, something that maybe hasn't happened in a while. So tell us about that.
How about hasn't happened ever? We've got live coverage of the Beaver State Fling. I know I was surprised as everybody, but the signal test's coming in pretty good from our advanced team. So the Silver Series is going to go live on the final day. It's only for DGN subscribers. I'm telling you, it's worth the subscribe. Go get you one. Remember, if you're a PDGA member, you get half off of the monthly rate, and you get to see Milo McIver live. We're going to crown the champion in Estacada, Oregon. I cannot wait.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. When I said I said new and not in a while. Beaver State Fling has been this one of these, is the event happening, storms and all that taking place. So a lot going into this to make it exciting. I'm looking forward to watching it live the first time as well. Jamie, close us out. What a great episode this was.
Yeah, had a lot of fun, guys. And to play us out, we've got a really cool featurette. Again, Disc Golf Network subscribers, click in. If you're not watching on there right now, go log in and check out this new documentary from the producer, Corey Merle. He's got David Wiggins Jr. If you don't know who that name is, you definitely need to watch it. And if you know that name, you're already clicking play. It's a great one. Go check it out.
All right, everybody. Till next time. Peace out.
There was this kid, we can call him a kid because he's 14 years old, who was going to be swinging on the swing sets up until 2 minutes was called. He'd fly off the swings, run to the tee box, and then he was going to beat you. And that was David Wiggins.
Superboy David Wiggins. This little kid who's just stout.
I mean, he grew up with basically every single distance record that you could possibly have. He is a power machine.
You know, his game impresses me all the way across the board. Just an insane talent. He was just built to throw a disc.